Okay, let's try something. Can you name the movie, the actor, just from the line? No visuals, no specific voice tone, like, you can't handle the truth.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I'll be back. Maybe, may the force be with you.
It's pretty wild, isn't it? You just hear those words and bang, it's right there in your head.
Instantly.
Yeah, you don't just get the film, you probably see the scene, right? You feel the emotion. That's what real cultural impact looks like. It's like these things become part of our shared language.
Totally. And it's not just quotes either. Think about characters. Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
James Bond, Indiana Jones, Rocky Balboa. You hear the name, you see the face, the moments.
Absolutely. Iconic.
But here's the kicker, the really surprising thing we're digging into today. The sources we looked at claim that none of those quotes, none of those characters I just mentioned were actually created in the last, say, 20 years.
It's a striking claim when you stop and think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, even, the big Marvel or DC characters we see all the time now, those characters are mostly from comics written decades ago. Sometimes 60, 80 years back. So what we're often getting is, it's another version, another remake maybe, a rehash of something old.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. We need to figure out why modern movies, maybe modern culture in general, seem to be having trouble creating those new things that stick, those really memorable touchstones.
Yeah.
We're unpacking this idea that everything we see and watch and listen to now is either a continuation of some old franchise or a remake of something that came out decades ago. Let's get into it.
Well, what really jumped out from the sources is how consistent this pattern seems to be. One analysis mentioned looking at 6 different lists, best movie quotes ever.
Okay.
And not one quote was from a movie made after 2005, not one.
Wow, 2005, that's we're 2 decades ago now.
Exactly. And it's similar with character lists. If you look at iconic movie characters, they're almost all from before, maybe 2010 at the latest. It really suggests something fundamental has changed.
Yeah, I read about this young subscriber writing into one of the sources, basically saying their generation doesn't really have its own Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, nothing truly defining. And the source sort of implies this constant copying, this recycling, just leads to everything feeling, a bit mediocre. What's actually getting lost?
Well, the sources point to some recent examples to illustrate this.
Yeah.
Think about 3 big movies that were out recently.
Yeah.
Jurassic World, the 7th film in that series?
Right.
Fantastic Four, the 3rd attempt at characters from a comic that's 60 years old.
Okay.
And Superman, another reboot, the 3rd in 20 years, based on an 80-year-old character.
And they make money, right? Jurassic World made a ton.
Oh, huge money.
Yeah.
Jurassic World's headed for $1 billion
Yeah.
easily. But the argument is that box office number, that's not the same thing as cultural staying power. Not at all.
So how do they differentiate that? How do you measure that cultural impact versus just ticket sales?
They compared to fast food. You eat it, it fills a gap. Maybe it's even enjoyable for a minute, but then poof, it's gone, forgotten.
Okay.
The sources ask, is anyone really going to be talking about a specific scene or quoting a line from the latest Jurassic World in a month or remembering James Gunn's Superman a year later?
Probably not, no.
The answer, they argue, is almost certainly no.
The Avatar films feel like the perfect example of that. I mean, massive box office numbers, right?
It's just unbelievable numbers.
But does anyone ever really talk about them afterwards? Beyond the visuals, I mean. Are there fan theories, people quoting lines?
Not really, no. Because there's not much there.
Yeah.
The sources basically call them hollow spectacle. Visually stunning, sure, but lacking substance. Deeper meaning.
Yeah, just kind of empty calories, culturally speaking.
And it's interesting what the sources say about films that felt huge at the time, like Avengers, Endgame. How does that hold up now in terms of cultural footprint?
It's kind of faded, hasn't it? The view seems to be, it's more like a footnote, often just mentioned as the point where the whole Marvel thing maybe started to dip.
Right, the peak before the slide. So, okay, the big question then is, why? Why is this happening?
What do the sources say?
Well, they suggest it's kind of a 2-part problem. First, there's this idea that we've just seen so much visual spectacle, we're kind of numb to it.
Like visual inflation.
Exactly. Visual inflation. That's a great way to put it. What blew our minds 20, 30 years ago is just Tuesday now. So you can't really replicate the pure shock and awe of seeing that first Star Destroyer in A New Hope or the T-Rex in Jurassic Park.
Because we've seen variations of it 1,000,000 times since.
Right. It might still look cool, impressive even, but it doesn't land the same way. It's not truly memorable anymore.
And it's not just the visuals, is it? Because the most memorable stuff, often, it's just people talking. Regular people in fairly normal situations. But the writing is so good that the lines just stick. No giant explosions needed.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's the second part of the problem the sources highlight, the writing. There seems to be an absence of that kind of sharp, character-focused writing in a lot of modern blockbusters.
Why is that?
Well, when the main goal is delivering spectacle, dialogue often just become functional. Explaining the plot, moving things along. It's not crafted to be resonant or quotable.
Okay.
And this ties into the economics of it all. There's this huge corporate pressure to de-risk everything. Studios feel safer putting money into something people already know, a sequel, a remake, existing IP, even if it's creatively tired.
So they're choosing the predictable, smaller win over the risky, potentially huge win of something totally.
That's the argument. It's not necessarily a lack of talent out there. It's that the system itself, the financial incentives, they kind of push towards reusing old ideas rather than gambling on originality. They'd rather make a safe $10 million than risk losing 20 trying to make $100 million on something untested.
So it's systemic. It's built into the Hollywood machine now.
Seems like it. And if you zoom out, this feeling, this inertia, this sort of stagnation, it doesn't feel like it's just movies, does it?
No, you're right. It feels broader.
Yeah, the sources connect this Hollywood trend to a kind of general cultural fatigue. Like, if fashion isn't defining new eras anymore and music feels a bit stuck and tech is more iterative than revolutionary, maybe it's not surprising that film is reflecting that too.
That's a really interesting point because you think about, I don't know, any decade from the 50s to the 90s, you could probably identify it pretty quickly, right? By the clothes, the music, the tech, the films.
Totally. Each had a distinct feel. Rock and roll, disco, grunge, the dot-com boom.
Exactly. But somewhere around, the late 2000s, early 2010s, it feels like things just slowed down, leveled off.
Yeah.
Fashion doesn't seem to have those big decade-defining shifts anymore. Technology updates feel smaller, less world-changing. Pop music got very homogenized. And that's right when Hollywood really doubled down on the reboots and franchise.
It's like we stopped pushing forward and just started constantly looking back, replaying the greatest hits.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway you think people should consider about this whole idea of cultural stagnation?
For me, it really circles back to that key difference. Making tons of money at the box office just isn't the same as creating something that lasts, something that genuinely impacts the culture.
Right.
The sources hammered this home. A billion-dollar movie can still be essentially forgettable, like that fast food meal analogy. Consumed and gone. Not like Star Wars, which is still being talked about decades later.
And the core reasons the sources gave for why we're not seeing those new, lasting creations.
It really seems to be a mix of things.
Yeah.
Creative complacency, maybe.
Yeah.
Fueled by that corporate fear of taking risks.
Mm-hmm.
We're overly reliant on visual spectacle, which has kind of numbed us. And that focus on safe bets on existing franchises means we're often missing out on the really sharp writing, the kind that gives you those iconic moments with just, regular old people in normal places saying something meaningful.
Without needing a spaceship to explode behind them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads to this bigger, more provocative question, I think. The sources kind of speculate, are we just stuck in this loop, sort of circling the drain culturally? Or is this maybe a tipping point?
A tipping point, like the end of an era.
Yeah, almost like we've been artificially keeping this old cultural model going for too long. One source used this great metaphor, a cultural dam that's been holding back the flood for too long.
Okay, I like that. And the cracks are showing.
That's the idea. Cracks caused by corporate greed, laziness, and risk aversion, plus maybe some horrendous mismanagement and creative retardation of those beloved old franchises. Eventually the dam has to break, right?
So the final thought to leave you with is this. If that cultural dam does burst, what's left when the water...
And maybe more importantly, what kind of new, genuinely original voices and story might finally get a chance to grow when that old guard, that old way of doing things finally gives way? What comes